An iconic bomber is now in the metro. What's being done to the decades-old plane to make it fly again?
A new plan to have almost anybody help out in the classroom. We've got your back with a fact check tonight on whether these new subs have to first meet certain requirements.
Plus, federal benefits are ending up in mailboxes of people who didn't sign up. What you need to do if you get them. We're usually on at 9, but not tonight because of the game. The news starts right now.
This is the Fox 25 News Late Edition.
But it was confusing to parents because they just got this card in the mail and had no idea why they were getting it.
Edmond parents are speaking out following a story that we first brought you last night.
Yeah, when families who don't qualify for free or reduced lunch got benefit cards in the mail, they wondered why. Fox 25's Peyton May has your back tonight, digging in to find answers. Peyton, how did this all begin?
Dan and Wendy, our search for an explanation is ongoing. The Department of Human Services and the Department of Education tell me they got their list of families who needed PEBT cards from Edmond School District. Now, on the other hand, the school tells me they only distributed a list of students who are qualified for free or reduced meals. Tonight, the question remains, how did some of those families get added to the list?
I received an envelope first from my middle son. And it was addressed to him, and it says something about PEBT. We could see it through that window, so we were completely confused as to why he's getting a PEBT.
This was the envelope Aisha Munera and her family got in the mail. Inside, a pandemic electronic benefits transfer card.
Initially, we thought, my goodness, is this some sort of a scam? Because did somebody take his identity? What happened?
Although it wasn't a scam, the card shouldn't have ended up in the Munera's mailbox. The PEBT card inside the envelope was funded by the federal government and aimed at helping students who would have gotten free or reduced lunches if it weren't for the pandemic sending them to virtual learning. The Munera kids don't fall under that category.
We were very shocked because they've never qualified for this. We have never asked for this. Nobody's asked our permission to apply for this, and we get an Oklahoma PEBT card.
Wondering what could have happened, Munera took to social media asking if any other parent had the same experience.
And I'm hearing back from a lot of people saying that they have received it.
Of the parents who received the surprise cards in the mail, many are confused about the data mix-up and concerned that the money falling into the wrong hands will leave lasting impacts.
If this money that is in the PEBT card is supposed to go for another child, I would hate to think that their quota is becoming less because these other cards are going out to kids who don't really need it.
If you think you received a PEBT card by mistake, the State Department of Education is asking you to destroy it. We'll continue to keep you updated as we search for more answers. Live in the studio, Peyton May, Fox 25 News.
Thank you. It's taken almost 3 weeks to get here, but the B-52 is finally in Oklahoma City tonight. The plane made its way to Tinker Air Force Base this morning from Arizona. It's set to become the prototype for all B-52s for the next few decades. A push to revamp rather than rebuild new aircraft by the military. The logistics to get the B-52 from Arizona to here were intense. Since the aircraft is so huge, whole streets had to be shut down when the plane went through small towns.
To be able to work on something that's as iconic as the B-52 and then be able to modernize it to bring it into the 21st century, keeping it flying into 2050 and beyond is very, very exciting for the Boeing company.
Boeing will be replacing the old engine with a new Rolls-Royce engine, which will have better fuel mileage. Radars will also be upgraded. Troopers say they were honored to be part of the escort for the B-52 bomber. People in many towns throughout Oklahoma saw it pull through. If you have any pictures, you can upload them to the Chime In section on our website.
The state health department updating COVID numbers tonight. Today marked the third straight day with more than 13,000 new cases. There are now 122,000 active cases statewide. COVID is again affecting schools as teachers are forced to stay home sick. The governor hoping to fix that with his new order allowing state employees to work as substitute teachers. But it's drawing a lot of questions tonight. One of the biggest, do these state employees have to go through a background check to sub? We've seen plenty of questions and concerns on social media talking about this question. So tonight, we're getting answers for you. So do state employees have to go through that background check? The answer, yes, they do. According to officials with OSBI and the State Department of Education, it's the same background check process a traditional sub or emergency certified teacher would have to go through. And this applies even if the person already went through one to be a state employee. So here's how this whole process was explained to us. Basically, a state employee wanting to be a sub submits a background check to the Department of Ed. Then it goes to the OSBI for processing. They're going to run that actual check through state and FBI databases. Officials tell us that alone can take anywhere from 2 to 14 days. And once that's done, it goes back to the Department of Ed for final review and approval. This entire process can take 4 to 6 weeks. Now, officials tell us while they are working as quickly as possible, there's no official order to expedite this process. And there's also the question of who has to pay for background checks, which can run you about $60. According to the State Department of Ed, the person who requested the check normally has to pay for it, and they have not been told otherwise by the governor's office. Now, if you have questions or anything really you want us to look into, reach out to us via email or on our social media pages.
Quite the warm-up today, but will it stick around? Chief Meteorologist Jeff George has got your back tonight with how the rest of your weekend will pan out and what to expect for the start of our work week. Jeff.
If you really like warmer winter weather, you're really going to like the next couple days because a nice south breeze will increase the temperatures nicely and quite a bit. So we will see warmer temperatures coming in here. Our next weather maker doesn't slide through until Monday night into Tuesday. Right now it's in the southwest U.S. spinning around Phoenix, and when it does come through, man, it gets a whole lot colder and some snow is possible as we head into Tuesday. But dry skies continue this evening and tonight. Right now we're in the 20s and 30s, and we're going down to about 27 tonight in Oklahoma City. Simply clear, cold, and dry, and not much wind, luckily. And really chilly for a couple days this week. That's it. Mostly okay temperatures through Friday. But how much snow do we get on Tuesday? Your storm watch forecast in just a little bit.
Next time a winter storm blows through, you can get minute-by-minute updates on your phone with your Fox 25 weather app. You can download it right now wherever you get your apps.
The live desk tracking growing tensions between the UK and Russia. Let's pull up Apple TV so I can show you this tweet right here from Liz Truss, the UK Foreign Secretary. She says, quote, "We will not tolerate Kremlin plot to install pro-Russia leadership in the Ukraine." This after the UK says it has intel that Russia is trying to do just that. Russia has denied claims that it's planning to attack the Ukraine and also denies the statements made by the British Foreign Office. Now, the U.S. recently agreed to continue having those diplomatic conversations with Russia, but we do know that Russia has been sending more soldiers to the border with the Ukraine and that the U.S. had sent ammunition and weapons to the Ukraine.
An update tonight on a legal battle over how much you should get to know about Oklahoma's execution. Just days ago, a judge denied a request for a temporary injunction to get the state to turn over certain information about the drugs used before our next execution.
But the case attempting to shed light on our death penalty process isn't over yet. And as we learned, there's more at stake than you might think. A troubling series of botched executions got the world's attention.
Saw convulsing, you saw the up and down.
Starting in 2014 with Clayton Lockett, then a wrong drug used to execute Charles Warner in 2015, leading Oklahoma to take a close look at our lethal injection process and ultimately pause all executions.
Why had these attempted executions gone so badly wrong?
Acting as a private citizen, Fred Hedara used Oklahoma's Open Records Act to request what exactly the state had learned in its own analysis, including details about the drugs used, where they came from, and the order they were given.
What response did you get back from the state of Oklahoma?
Well, at first we got no response. After pressing a few months later, we got a terse response saying there are no records.
There are no responsive records for this request, is the email sent back from the attorneys at the Department of Corrections. Hodara's lawsuit filed in Oklahoma County District Court accuses ODOC of violating the Open Records Act by not turning over the information. Filings show in other responses, the state claims Hodara's requests are too extensive and would cause an excessive disruption.
That's not really a valid defense under the Open Records Act. A government body cannot say, you've asked for too many things, we are not going to give you anything.
Media law attorney Catherine Garner is among those watching this legal battle closely.
Talk about our rights as a public. Like when we talk about open records, people don't realize at home, like this is about their access.
Every single citizen has a right to know and be fully informed about the government's activities, especially in a case like this where you are talking about an execution.
Hodara is pressing the court to act quickly as executions resume, starting with John Grant October 28th, with witnesses describing another troubling outcome.
His entire upper torso was coming up off of the gurney.
Attorneys for the state are now leaning on a provision in the law that protects identities of individuals, even though Hodara isn't asking for specific names of people. We reached out to the Department of Corrections, but we're told it's their policy not to comment on pending litigation. If the court agrees with the state in this case, Gardner warns the precedent would be devastating for everyone, regardless of where they stand on the death penalty.
That would essentially prevent the public from having any type of scrutiny or oversight of the execution process at all.
Transparency in the most solemn act our state carries out, on the line, and now in the hands of the court.
Hodara calls the judge's ruling in favor of the state last week disappointing, but the full case does move forward. The next hearing is set for February 22nd. A state lawmaker wants to put the death penalty to a vote of the people. Rep. Mari Turner wants the question of whether the death penalty should be used to go on a ballot. This has already been done before in 2016, with 66% of voters affirming the death penalty.
I walked today because not many people in my generation have the guts to stand up here and do what's unpopular of them to do.
We want to see a culture where we have people that say, I'm going to warmly welcome every child and not discriminate against any child.
That was the focus of today's march at the state capitol. Pro-life supporters were joined by Senator Langford to protest abortion. The march comes ahead of an expected decision from the Supreme Court in a Mississippi case that could limit abortions across America. Supporters hope to completely overturn Roe v. Wade. Senator Langford says states should be able to decide abortion laws for themselves.
But what the court is looking at is, can the states come back and be the one to be able to manage actually abortion, not the federal government? I'm very hopeful that we're going to have a post-Roe America by this summer.
The Supreme Court is expected to rule on the abortion case soon. All right, let's take a look at what's trending on OKCFox.com tonight. The only child of actress Regina King has died. Ian Alexander Jr. just turned 26 on Wednesday. A family representative confirmed the death was a suicide. A Washington man allegedly shot someone he says was driving his stolen car. Deputies say the 70-year-old found his stolen vehicle at home and started arguing with the man driving it. The driver then reportedly tried to drive off. That's when that man opened fire. Both the shooter and driver were taken to the hospital. And an Illinois man is crushed to death in a garbage truck. Community members say Leroy Keller was homeless. Officials are concerned as it gets colder, something like this could happen again. You can read more about those stories and a whole lot more right now at OKCFox.com. And another story that's trending on our website tonight, massive data discrepancies for the state health department. The numbers of COVID variants in the state don't add up. You can find out what our investigation found and how the Department of Health responded by opening your Fox 25 News app.
Oklahoma's Department of Wildlife is trending on Twitter and TikTok tonight, all because of a post about mountain lions. It started earlier this week when the agency tweeted about not letting mountain lions inside. That tweet was seen all over the world. The agency keeps updating their Twitter account with new memes, like this one today. They're also making fun of their tweet on their official Department of Wildlife TikTok page. It's definitely a fun one to follow. Happening this weekend, you can get design ideas at the OKC Home and Garden Show. The 3-day event will have home displays and products and services to help with your next project. Some event goers were treated to HGTV star Darren Keefe at the Urban Farming feature. Show organizers say the crowds are ready to come back.
We're definitely having our consumers coming back. Folks are ready to come on out, speak to our experts. Everyone has some sort of a project for their home.
Tomorrow is the last day. Show hours are from 11 to 5. You can get tickets online or at the door. A surveillance state in schools, what many parents are calling a new plan to put cameras in classrooms, hallways, and cafeterias. Why districts say they're needed. That's coming up.
Plus, hundreds of seized guns are sitting in police stations across the state. We've got your back with what most departments do with the weapons they take off the street. Next.
And Monday through Friday, make sure you catch us 1 hour earlier than most late newscasts on the Fox 25 News at 9. You can also watch online at okcfox.com or through our Fox 25 News app.
Every year, Oklahoma deputies and officers take hundreds of guns off the streets. And as those weapons start piling up, you might wonder where they go.
Fox 25's Peyton May talked with more than a dozen departments across the state to find out what happens to those firearms and how law enforcement keeps them from getting into the wrong hands.
Across Oklahoma, each department has a policy for confiscated weapons, whether they were used in a crime or not. Many choose to destroy these weapons. A list of those include the State Bureau of Narcotics, Oklahoma City, Edmond, Norman, Moore, Yukon, and Mustang police departments, and the Canadian County Sheriff's Office.
The reason why that we destroy them is the sheriff here in Canadian County has decided he doesn't want to take a chance on those guns going back to the street, ever being used in a crime again. Just push it down and it would load.
In Canadian County, the Sheriff's Office takes in around 25 to 50 guns a year. Every single one is ground up.
Of course, you know, for most of us in law enforcement, when we see a collector's piece or a very valuable gun get destroyed, we're thinking, oh gosh, you know, that's just the man in us. But on the other hand, when you think, hey, that 25 caliber Titan, that's a $100 gun, can be used to kill somebody, yeah, you don't feel quite so bad then about destroying those weapons.
Other departments take a different route. Del City Police turns the guns over to a dealer, and Oklahoma County Sheriff and Bethany Police auction them off. At the last Oklahoma County Sheriff's auction, 700 guns were sold for around $93,000. Some of that money will be used to solve current weapons issues.
Our deputies, they have to buy their own guns. And there's some downsides to that. So say, for example, you've got two people out patrolling. One has a Glock, one has a Sig Sauer. If there's some type of a gun battle and one runs out of ammunition, they can't share magazines with each other.
Bethany Police has a similar policy. Lieutenant Angelo Orfici says every year around 200 to 300 guns are sold to anyone with a federal firearms license in a sealed bid auction.
I know that the money usually will go to the general fund, and some of that money is used for our training budget. So we use that money either for like ammunition and things like that, so we can go out and train with it.
Are there any weapons that were sold here that were ever found at a scene of a crime later on?
I don't specifically have that information, no.
Is that something that you're ever concerned about?
As the police department, I don't know if it's more of a concern, but I mean, that would be an issue. I mean, there's police departments all over the U.S. that sell their guns at auctions, but, you know, we can't determine what someone's going to do with it later on down the road.
Legally, once the guns are turned over to an FFL dealer, it's no longer in the department's hands where the guns are sold. Peyton May, Fox 25 News.
The first shipment of so-called U.S. lethal aid has arrived in Ukraine as Russia appears ready to invade. Those funds include $200 million worth of defense equipment and ammunition. According to reports, the U.S. is also getting ready to evacuate non-essential staff from its Ukrainian embassy. House Armed Services Committee member Mike Waltz believes an invasion is imminent.
It's not just the numbers, it's the types of troops. Many of them are from his reserves and National Guard, which are primarily intended for occupation duty. So I do think this invasion is imminent.
Waltz thinks there's a lot more the U.S. can and should be doing to support Ukraine. So far, diplomatic talks between the U.S. and Russia haven't brought any breakthroughs, but the two countries plan to continue discussions. Coming up, students are being monitored 24/7 in some school districts tonight as cameras go up in all areas of the school.
We've got your back with why districts say this surveillance is necessary right after this break. Some school districts are now monitoring conversations among students when the kids don't even know it.
Cassie Arsenal with our sister station in Cincinnati has your back tonight with why officials say it's being done in the name of safety.
Student surveillance is now 24/7. Conversations students once had in person, they're having over the computer. And the Cincinnati Public Schools can see it all. All they need to be able to spy is an app called Gaggle.
It basically goes through all of the chat messages, all the emails, and all of the documents looking for keywords. It could be cuss words, it could be relating to suicide, alcohol, violence.
Gaggle uses an algorithm that scrapes keywords in places like Google Chats. A Gaggle employee reads them and then alerts that particular school. Each school has a team of people that are supposed to read the context of the flagged word before taking action.
We have had students who are contemplating suicide, and we've been able to step in and intervene and get them the help that they need.
I think it's fantastic. I didn't even know that was a thing until you told me. I think it's great.
It's easy to say that the algorithm has prevented things because we don't have the data. So it's easy for me to make up data that is not verifiable.
Joe Robb cannot deny this algorithm may have stopped violent threats, bullying, and suicides. CPS says what Gaggle flags is broken up into 3 levels, the third level being the most severe. Last month, they had 7 flags in the most severe category. 258 rose to a level 2 and 23 at level 1. Still, Joe Robb says algorithms are imperfect. His daughter in the 5th grade at Dater Montessori was added to a Google chat she did not ask to be added to, and she did not participate in. Still, when the conversation was flagged for self-harm, the vice principal threatened to take away her laptop.
The algorithm said this is a problem, and the direct response from the school was, your daughter's the problem. Where in fact she wasn't the problem, right? It was something that needed to be reviewed.
Robb says the vice principal apologized. Robb jumped into the chat, sending this urgent warning that would hit home.
We're all internet citizens. This is the most our kids have used the internet, and this is an opportunity to teach them about how to use the internet.
Up next, there's a new national crisis when it comes to children's mental health.
And now there aren't enough people to help them. Where school counselors and psychologists are going and why school districts can't keep them. Next.
If you're heading off to church in the morning or just walking the dog, make sure you layer up, please. Temperatures in the 20s and 30s and not too breezy. Luckily, how much snow do we get on Tuesday and how much colder does it get this time? Your Storm Watch forecast is next.
Continuing to keep a close eye on those growing tensions between Russia and the Ukraine. With eyes on Washington, D.C. right now, I want to take you to this tweet from the White House where we learned from a statement that today President Biden met with his national security team to discuss that continued Russian aggressive action toward the Ukraine. He affirmed that if Russia further invades the Ukraine, the United States would impose swift and severe consequences on Russia with our allies and partners. Now, we will be continuing to monitor this ever-changing and incredibly tense situation from the live desk.
We are in the midst of a national crisis when it comes to kids' mental health. They're coping with the pandemic, return to school anxiety, and family challenges.
In many places, the resources to help kids at school are stretched thin. National investigative reporter Josie Sturman's got your back, digging into the shortage of school psychologists across the country.
This chilling video captures the moment students barricaded themselves in a classroom at Oxford High School in Michigan this past November. and then ran for their lives as a classmate shot 11 people inside, killing 4 of them. The teenage gunman reportedly showed signs he was struggling with depression and thoughts of violence before the shooting. For healthcare professionals, it was yet another urgent signal that this country needs to do better when it comes to early mental health interventions for children.
I think this is such a significant issue, and it's an issue that impacts everyone. I think
Dr. Lee Savio-Beers is president of the American Academy of Pediatrics, which this past fall took the drastic step of declaring a national state of emergency in children's mental health.
We're seeing really just incredibly concerning and alarming increases in the number of children with mental health concerns who are coming to us seeking care, and at the same time an increasing difficulty in accessing that care.
Spotlight on America has been digging into this problem and found a nationwide shortage in a key set of mental health providers in our classrooms, school psychologists.
If I, could wave a magic wand and put a school psychologist in every single school building, I absolutely would. Psychologists and other mental health professionals really are just our front line of defense.
But it's a frontline defense that's under intense strain. The National Association of School Psychologists recommends a ratio of 1 school psychologist for every 500 students. We dug through their data and found only 1 state in the country, Maine, that meets that recommended ratio, with Connecticut, North Carolina, and Utah coming close. The vast majority of the country, we discovered, is far behind. 11 states have average ratios of 1 psychologist for 2,000 students or more. Alabama, Mississippi, and New Mexico are the worst, with ratios of at least 7,000 students to 1 school psychologist.
The cost is student mental and emotional health.
Jessica Cragel has been a school psychologist for 6 years in Delaware and says the demand for her help has expanded dramatically in recent months.
My students are definitely struggling. So mental health has risen to the very top of the priority list this year.
She told us she shares her student caseload with 2 other psychologists, each one handling about 300 students, which is well under the recommended ratio. But she still worries about what's happening in other schools.
They're not going to be getting the mental, emotional, behavioral health skills, the training, the coping. They're not going to be building any of that. I just definitely feel sad because it doesn't have to be that way.
Spotlight on America reached out to individual school districts across the country to get a sense of how they're trying to meet the needs of their students. We heard back from more than 36 school systems and found that while they all employ school psychologists, they're often stretched between multiple schools. A number of districts told us they have vacant positions they can't fill, with many others saying they rely on school counselors, social workers, and even outside mental health providers to try to meet student needs.
How do you plead the case that we need these people? They're essential to solve this problem.
So by investing in mental health resources in a school, you're actually investing in a child's education. So if we don't act now, we may have a whole generation of kids that really is struggling for many, many years to come.
I'm Josie Sturman for Spotlight on America.
It's a pretty easy forecast tonight. Simply clear and cold temperatures right now in the 30s and 40s, but it does get a lot warmer the next couple days, only to chill right back down Monday night heading into Tuesday. That's when this next weather maker comes sweeping through. Right now it's still in the southwest U.S. It'll be there most of tomorrow too, but when this thing slides through Oklahoma, temperatures do decrease like a lot, and snow chances only increase a little bit. So not looking for a whole lot of precipitation, and clear skies will continue tonight. Everyone heading down into the 20s, most of us down into a deep, deep freeze again. 27 Oklahoma City, the average low is 27, so that's about as normal as it gets. Kicking off your weekend, or your Sunday actually, about 27 or 28, another cold one, just a bit of a breeze, and we do keep all that sunshine in the forecast the whole time tomorrow. We should be in the 30s at 9, 40s at 10, about 51 at noon. Some fair weather clouds and a lot of 50s tomorrow afternoon, and feeling kind of nice Nothing great or anything like that, but it does feel a lot better on Monday. Nice and comfy, almost everybody in the 60s. Some showers down here in southeast Oklahoma, northwest. Here comes that cold front, and that next weather maker, it will be a game changer for sure, mostly with the temperatures. So all the 50s and 60s get wiped out on Tuesday, and we say hello to some 30s and 40s. So way below average temperatures coming in, and just a little bit of snow. So we're talking about some light snow and flurries here in central Oklahoma, just a few flakes here and there, no big deal, and light amounts of snow. So this snow coming in on Tuesday evening, heading into the overnight, this is going to be a very low impact event and really nothing to get excited about. So it stays super chilly on Wednesday too, only heading up into the 40s, but the 50s, yeah, they start to show up on Thursday, and we keep those highs in the 50s on Friday and this weekend too. Partly cloudy skies, and we are looking at freezing or below freezing mornings all next week.
The used car market is hot right now, but you need to beware before you buy. That story coming up.
Cars, new and used, are in short supply and expensive right now. So if you see a good deal, you might be ready to pounce.
Fox 25's Maria Garcia has your back with the information you need before you try to buy. It's tonight's Consumer Watch.
Scammers are watching, and if something is in high demand, well, their crimes often are tailored to the needs of others. That's what's happening right now with peer-to-peer car sales.
This is one of our fastest growing types of disputes. And what we think is happening is, there's a huge shortage of used vehicles in the market. Prices are going up. People are getting a little bit desperate to find a good deal. And that creates a natural opening for scammers.
Used car scams are happening in two big ways. First, you see a post on a third-party site like Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, and it looks like a good deal, but then the problems start.
The seller will say something like, hey, I'm out of the country. Can we do this online? I can have it delivered to you. Or, hey, the car is actually with my cousin, family, whatever. I can't show it right now, but I have a video.
A push to do the entire transaction online is a red flag. And then they may eventually ask you to send them money online too. If you do fall victim to this kind of scam, it is very difficult to get your money back. And if you've used an app like Cash App or Venmo, you are not entitled to a refund. The second kind of scam, the person is really selling a car, but there is something wrong with the car and you are not aware.
They may have tampered with the mileage. They might have turned off the check engine light without fixing the engine. There might be something that's advertised that looks really great, but isn't actually quite that great. And you discover it a few days later.
You can go to small claims court by yourself. Dispute says it also helps clients through the process for a fee. Either way, you will need some information up front to protect yourself. Get the address of the person that you're buying from. This could look like getting a copy of an ID. You could ask for a contract that lays out what you're buying and its condition. If you have all of this information and something goes wrong, you can make a request for them to make it right, or you can go to small claims court. In Oklahoma, you are limited to a recovery of $10,000, according to the Oklahoma Bar Association. You will need the name of the person that you're trying to sue, where they live, and the amount that you're trying to get back. Maria Garcia, Fox 25 Consumer Watch.
Well, we had a full day of sports activity with the NFL playoffs. Plenty of basketball as well, with both Oklahoma and Oklahoma State in action. The Thunder on the road tonight in Cleveland, and the game had some very intense moments, with ejections part of the story. I'll explain that next in the Sports Wrap.
This is Fox 25 Sports.
Hello, everybody. So far, 2022 has not been good for the Thunder. Going into tonight's game in Cleveland, the Thunder are just 1-9 in the month of January. A week ago tonight, the Cavs came to Paycom Center and handed Oklahoma City one of those 9 losses. The Thunder took that info from the game and hopefully learned something from that. May work tonight, like go to Darius Baisley early. Not a bad call after that bucket is evidence. Of course, you better have to plan to deal with this guy, Darius Garland, finding the open man. On this occasion, rookie Evan Mobley for the dunk. Speaking of finding a guy, Josh Giddey found Shai Gilgeous-Alexander all by himself. He made the Cavs pay. How about some hustle? Kendrick Williams, as good as any, runs down the rebound, runs into a three-pointer that he has the skill to kill. As for Garland, well, he was the main weapon for the Cavs. 23 points to go with 11 assists. SGA played well as all. 39 points, scored 29 points, 9 boards, 6 assists. Got to see a replay on this bucket to truly appreciate the degree of difficulty. Check this out, a nice left hand off the wrong foot. Where's Lou Dort? Well, he got tangled up for a loose ball, ended up catching Kevin Love with an errant elbow. Some scuffling went down. Dort got ejected. Cavs got the win, 94-87 to final. Let's talk some college basketball. Oklahoma was home today against 5th-ranked Baylor. Sooners entered the game on a 3-game losing streak. During the bad run, they averaged only 58 points per game. New Sooner football coach Brent Venables would be happy with those numbers producing if he goes next season. Marvin Johnson saw his most significant playing time since he was playing for Terry Evans back at Edmond North High. He helped OU climb out of a 10-point deficit in the first half, but L.J. Cryer helped Baylor close the half strong, led by 4 at the break, 25-21. Cryer had 14 points in the game. Their run continued to begin the second half, where they shot 61%. Matthew Myers' three-pointer pushing that lead to 12, 33-21. Stayed that way until about the 10-minute mark when OU's defense led some offense. Jordan Goldwire still on one end, leading to a dunk by Jalen Hill to cut the margin to 10. That seemed to get OU's offense going. Ended up shooting 46% with the second half. Tanner Grove's scoring issues continued until he got his first bucket. About the 14-minute mark, he would end up hitting 4 of 6. That three pulling OU within 5. Still really 7 minutes to go, but also got a big technical. Baylor got some key shot making, like this shot clock beater by Meyer to the board. Baylor got the win, 65-51. But the other key numbers, OU had 25 turnovers. Baylor got 35 points off those mistakes.
You're not going to be Baylor with 25 turnovers. You're not going to be Baylor with 25. You're not going to be a lot of teams with 25 turnovers. We're searching for consistency. You need a lot of guys playing well together. They're down 10-0, fought back to take a lead. Got down 14 or something in the second half, fought back to cut it to 3. A lot of fight that I like to see, but we got to play with better poise with the ball in terms of turnovers.
Let's check on Oklahoma State, who played at Texas this afternoon. Longhorns hit their first 3 3-point attempts, and Christian Bishop found an open spot as Texas raced out to a 13-zip lead. But a 10-plus minute scoreless drought allowed OSU to score 16 straight. Isaac Likely's layup giving OSU the lead. Of course, finding someone to consistently hit shots has been a big issue for OSU, but the last couple of games, Bryce Thompson has showed why he was the McDonald's All-American. His three-pointer handing OSU a 23-19 lead. Texas would answer, though, with Courtney Ramey starting the break. That would lead to Timmy Allen scoring. Cowboys still led by 2 at the break, though, 27-25. Second half, Thompson being aggressive on the pick and roll with Caleb Boone's pick, resulting in him getting an easy shot at the rim for the dunk. Texas would fire back by going on the back door. That leads to a corner 3 by Ramey for a 4-point play. Texas led part of his 10 points for Ramey here. But back came Thompson on the other end. The hard dribble with the behind-the-back shot, the dribble to the right, nails the elbow jumper. He had 20 points on 8 of 18 shooting. Of course, sometimes being lucky is what it really takes. Trey Mitchell banking one home. Texas won at 56-51 over the Cowboys.
Every game in this league is a really, really difficult challenge. And we're all learning that we're all going to take some lumps going through this deal. I mean, we lost a couple in a row. They lost a couple in a row. At some point, everybody's going to go through it. Just a matter how you respond.
Meanwhile, the OSU Cowgirls hosted West Virginia today. Despite 22 from Lexi Keys, Cowgirls lost the game 61-57. OSU falling to 6-10, 1-6 in Big 12 play. And ever wonder why they say San Francisco's Trent Williams the best left tackle in football? Well, this is why. The former OU Sooner, put him anywhere, he'll just clear a path. Wipes out not 1 but 2 Green Bay Packers on the play. It came down to special teams play. They blocked a punt for a touchdown, and the winning field goal as time expired by Robbie Gould, 42 yards out, 13-10. San Francisco advances to the NFC Championship game. That's sports.
A federal judge in Texas blocked President Biden's vaccine mandate for federal employees, a ruling that impacts more than 3 million workers.
Ryan Smith breaks down the decision that the judge called an overstep of the president's authority.
That Texas judge called the mandate an overstep of the president's authority and even cited last week's Supreme Court decision to strike down a separate mandate for private sector workers. The Justice Department already working on an appeal.
This is definitely starting to become a pattern of the Biden administration losing on the similar lines of reasoning in multiple cases now.
Constitutional law expert Thomas Berry says this decision would not have happened if not for the Supreme Court's ruling last week. U.S. District Judge Jeffrey Brown said, quote, "The president certainly possesses broad statutory authority to regulate executive branch employment policies, but the Supreme Court has expressly held that a COVID-19 vaccine mandate is not an employment regulation, and that means the president was without statutory authority to issue the federal worker mandate." Brown, appointed by then-President Donald Trump, said the government can protect public health through less invasive measures like masking and social distancing. The White House reports 98% of federal employees are vaccinated or seeking a medical or religious exemption.
Still, even if 1% of the federal workforce is unvaccinated, given the size of the federal workforce, that's not an insignificant number. And the opinion does suggest that that people in that 1% may be close to being fired or disciplined in some manner.
The group behind this legal fight, Feds for Medical Freedom, its president tells me, quote, "The 6,000 plus members want nothing more than to continue their service to this country without being subjected to unconstitutional mandates. For the time being, the court's ruling grants them that wish." White House officials saying they are confident in its legal authority. In Washington, I'm Ryan Smith reporting.
A Florida man jumps into action to save his dog from a bear attack. This video showing the hair-raising incident. Walter Hickox of Daytona Beach says he was bitten and scratched by the bear as he fought to rescue his 12-year-old dachshund, Pepper.
He didn't even hesitate. He went right in. Hickox did suffer some puncture wounds and slash marks on his back and arms from the bear's teeth and claws. None of those dogs were hurt.
A painting of Jesus Christ by Sandro Botticelli is being auctioned off by Sotheby's next week. It's expected to sell for around $40 million. Sotheby's says Botticelli painted Man of Sorrows late in his career, around 1500 or 1505. The painting had been in a private family collection since 1963.
Flying sausages save a stranded dog in England. Millie slipped her collar and got stranded in a mud flat. A volunteer group initially searched on foot and kayaks, but tying cooked sausages to drones ultimately did the trick. That pup was rescued and returned to her owner.
And speaking of dogs, back by popular demand is the dog walking forecast for tomorrow morning, 20s and 30s. We get into the